Okay, so I think I'll get started. Welcome to our Digital Scholar webinar. This is hosted by the Southern California Clinical and Translational Science Institute, University of Southern California, and also Children's Hospital LA. My name is Eric Peterson. I'm an associate professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences here in the Keck School of Medicine at USC. I'm also the co-director of digital recruitment and scholarship within the SC CTSI. So today we are going to have very engaging speakers, and we encourage you to please use the Q&A feature, but also the chat feature on Zoom. Everyone should know how to use this by now, but you can either do the chat or the QA. We'll monitor both of those. And any questions you have as they come up, please type them in. You can also, you can wait till the end, but it'd be great if you can just throw them in there whenever they come up, and we'll get to them throughout the talks as well as at the end. So we are excited today to have three members from POWER, which is a tool to help patients connect directly with leading medical researchers within this modern clinical trial marketplace, which the speakers will tell you about today. And so Brandon Lee is our featured speaker. He's the co-founder of POWER. He graduated from the University of Toronto, studying industrial engineering, operations research, machine learning, and user experience design. He has a background in building technology, products, and businesses that help remove the friction for people as they navigate these traditional opaque industries. And we're really excited to hear from Brandon as well as from John and Vana. And so I'm just going to turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric, thanks for having us. Karen, thank you for setting the stage here, and appreciate the introduction. So we'll get started very shortly. Just by way of quick intro, my name's Brandon. I'm one of the founders of POWER, joined here by two of my amazing colleagues, John and Vana, who lead a lot of our partnerships and strategy work that we do here at POWER. So maybe I'll start with a high level of what is POWER before we jump into some slides, and then we can roll in from there. But at a high level, POWER is what we call a modern clinical trial marketplace. If you had to remember this and maybe one tagline, the way to think about it is we've built the Airbnb of clinical trials. We've basically built the most patient-friendly, patient-centric way for individuals who are excited to learn about research. We've created a space for them to go and learn about that research and then get in touch with those researchers directly. So the way that you should be thinking about this is we have a lot of patients who are using the website already. We're actually one of the fastest growing websites that's ever been launched in clinical research. These patients are joining every single day to try to learn about research. And now as those researchers, those sites, those sponsors sign up on our website, we're able to connect the dots there and help individuals actually match into research. So with that said, I will share my screen and get going. Like I said, POWER, we are a modern clinical trial marketplace. I think 5 things that we really want to cover today. The first one is just an overview of where we're coming from. What are some of the problems that we see in clinical trials today? Everybody talks about recruitment as a challenge. What are the challenges with traditional patient recruitment? The second thing is understanding, okay, I keep saying this word, modern. What is a modern clinical trial marketplace? What does modern patient recruitment mean at all? And we'll kind of double click into how we think about that. The third one is actually we'd love to just show folks rather than telling. So I'll do a quick demo of the platform. Fourth, we'd love to then talk about specifically what does recruiting with POWER feel like if you're a PI, if you're a clinical research coordinator, if you're conducting research out there and trying to connect with patients. And then lastly, creating the space for Q&A. And I want to call out that Q&A doesn't have to happen at the end. Like Eric was saying, if you have questions, comments, anything that you would like to know, please feel free to drop it in the chat, drop it in the Q&A, and the team will ping me and interrupt me, hopefully, to let me know that there are questions that folks want answered. So if that all sounds good as an agenda, we can jump into part 1. What are some of the problems with clinical trial recruitment? Actually, before we do that, maybe just a quick introduction to the team. So the way that we think about the team that we've brought together here is we've brought together really a background in consumer technology, building kind of this Airbnb style platform, healthcare technology, as well as biopharma. So alongside the 3 folks here, we're also joined by Jeff Kindler, former CEO of Pfizer, Quita Highsmith, who is the Chief Diversity Officer at Genentech, Mary Abramson, who ran clinical operations at Merck and Biogen, and Jason Monteleone, who has run a handful of global CROs. So these folks bring the perspective from diversity to clinical operations to to drug development that really help us make sure that we're building a platform that's not only helpful for the patients, but also helpful for the folks and the researchers that are doing the work to connect with those patients. So as we think about patient recruitment, would love to start with actually just a framing of the problem. As everybody here would deeply understand, patients, site sponsors, everybody has a strong desire to engage with each other. But unfortunately, it's a bit of a struggle because the system today is quite difficult. So some of the systemic issues in patient recruitment that we see today, kind of threefold. The first one is awareness being limited. Most of the required stakeholders, none of the required stakeholders are able to easily find each other today and make the first connection. The kind of best platform, the best kind of comprehensive platform we have out there is clinicaltrials.gov. And I probably am not surprising anybody when I say this. If you ask any patients out there what the experience is like looking for a trial and trying to connect with individuals and using clinicaltrials.gov, usually you get pretty frustrated responses. The second systemic issue that we see often is that the journey of actually connecting with these patients and enrolling them in research is quite disjointed. So patients, site sponsors all need to coordinate with each other, but there's this kind of fragmented set of processes, software, technology, call centers, email, text message that all gets intermingled in a way that unfortunately lets people fall through the cracks. And the last one is just that reporting is inconsistent. So the data today is often manually tracked, reported in spreadsheets, and as a result, it's hard to make comprehensive strategic decisions in real time. The way that we see it, traditional patient recruitment, we define it as maybe three kind of primary approaches to patient recruitment. The first one is clinic-led recruitment, right? This is engaging with all of y'all, doing research in the clinic, at academic centers, in the community, essentially hoping that there are established patients in the clinics, or that there are a set of new patients that may walk in the door down the road to participate. Unfortunately, we've all had the experience where this doesn't quite ever really reach the levels that we all want when we embark on a project. The second one is paid digital marketing, right? Facebook advertising has been around forever, but then the complaints are also quite standard around there being, patients that don't have a lot of intent. They kind of forget what they signed up for in the first place, and they're not really excited about the idea of being sold clinical trials. And then the third piece is just going through patient databases, registries, and trying to reach out to a large list of patients. And for a lot of the folks who are on the ground, namely research coordinators, this can be a lot of legwork, working through potentially outdated leads, outdated lists of patients. It can be quite time sensitive or time intensive along the way. So that's how we think about patient recruitment today and the problems that what we've heard folks kind of face on the ground. One of the most interesting things that has happened, though, in the recent past is that patients are increasingly trying to help themselves and learn about research themselves. So we've actually seen patients looking for trials. This number has grown 22x in the last 7 years. And in fact, more than half of patients who end up looking for trials start in a self-directed way online. So whether that's looking on Google, looking on Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, or starting to try to figure out where there are disease-specific foundations or advocacy groups or websites that they can start finding information on. More than half of the people out there learning about research do it on their own online. And that shouldn't surprise anybody. I think that if I asked this group, what's the first thing you would do if you wanted to learn about research, you'd probably say that you'd Google something. And that's actually what most people do, unsurprisingly. So if we take these two things together, right, this idea that traditional patient recruitment is kind of tired and not really hitting the goals that we want, and that there's this new wave of patients who are increasingly trying to take control of their own care, I think that there's a need and an opportunity to evolve the way that we approach patient recruitment and connecting with patients online. So this chart kind of shows the evolution of strategies of engaging with patients on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we've got kind of the degree of patient centricity and how closely we are engaging with those patients where they are and in their needs. And I think that what we're seeing is this shift from what we're calling outbound patient recruitment, essentially trying to identify patients and reaching out to them and nudging them and selling them on trials, towards what we're calling inbound patient recruitment, which is really this idea that there are patients out there that are interested in research. We actually just have to cast the net appropriately, find those patients and bring them into the right places for those conversations. And those patients are the most empowered, the most engaged, and the most interested in research and participation. So one of the things that we take inspiration from here is just that we can learn from others. There have been amazing platforms that have come out in the last 10, 20 years that have really helped us navigate traditionally potentially impossible transactions in the real world. So, 15 years ago, it would have been impossible to think that you could fly to Boulder, Utah, and stay in this cave that somebody apparently owns and wants to rent out to you. You have no idea how you could do it. But today, with the advent of Airbnb, that's actually really easy to go and navigate. And that's exactly what we want to do to clinical trials. So we want to be a part of this paradigm shift, I think, where historically the way to go find patients is finding lists of patients and reaching out to them and having to engage them one-on-one, towards a model where we're actually democratizing access to information about clinical trials, and then democratizing access to the researchers themselves, where you can connect directly with those patients who might be interested in participating in your research. So modern patient recruitment, what is modern about it? How do we think about modern? I think there's a few things that need to be true about this new world for it to be modern. In particular, we probably want to reframe recruitment from being this top-down vendor-based activity where you're really kind of going after large lead lists that have low conversion rates, towards something that's patient-centric. That's not only patient-centric, but also offers the ability to continuously connect with new patients as they express interest in research, and you can kind of meet them exactly when they express their interest and collaborate all in one place. So as we see it, there's three defining characteristics of a modern clinical trial marketplace. The first one is that at the end of the day, the idea of a marketplace needs to include an ability to verifiably have these patients successfully show up and enroll in trials. Airbnb would be useless if people don't actually show up and stay in the homes. In the same way, a modern clinical trial marketplace would be useless if patients don't actually show up and participate in the research. The second thing I think is that it's actually a three-sided. It's a three-sided platform, in that there are kind of three stakeholders that probably need to be involved on some level. So the first stakeholder being patients, of course. The second stakeholder being sites and the teams at sites, PIs, CRCs, the folks doing the research, and the third one being sponsors, especially in an industry context. I think all three of these folks need to be active on a platform like this for it to be successful. And in particular, what we envision is that these three groups would collectively choose to use the platform because in doing so, it actually makes the whole system easier. It makes it easier to do recruitment for everybody involved. And if that's the case, we've got this mutually reinforcing, what we're calling a network effect, that allows patients to more successfully connect with researchers, researchers to more successfully recruit, and sponsors to have their trials go faster. And then the last piece is that a marketplace like this needs to reduce friction with the use of technology. And one thing that we've heard consistently from patients, from PIs, CRCs, sponsors, clinical operations, is that there's just too much friction today in the way that patients learn about research, get connected with researchers, and ultimately show up to participate. And we believe that a single platform that is three-sided, that has these three stakeholders all in one place, can introduce the technology tools required in order to stay in sync, standardize processes, and bring a really exciting reduction in friction. Actually, one example that kind of comes to mind is imagine a world where patients can book a initial phone consultation with the research team, right? They don't have to express interest and go back and forth via email and then find some time to have that conversation. I think there's a million and one actually small things we can do to reduce friction along the way. So this is what we think of in terms of three sides. I've said it a few times, but step one is that patients are out there looking for trials. And in particular, they're using our website withpower.com every single day to look for those trials. Step two is that we work with the trial teams to differentiate their profiles on Power so that patients can learn about the research, understand why it's interesting or exciting or why the team believes in it and the hypothesis that tends to drive patients to be interested in learning more. And the last one is that then patients can connect with the sites and the locations and the researchers themselves for the purposes of actually participating. So that's kind of the three steps in getting patients through the flow and the way that we think about these stakeholders interacting with each other. And the results have been amazing. So we've been doing this for almost a year and a half now. And what we've seen is that patients are already using Power to an extraordinary degree. So we have almost 40,000 patients, actually north of 40,000 patients, searching for trials on our website every single month. We're on pace to have more than 600,000 patients this year look for trials. We've had north of 900 actually teams at this point at sites. That includes all the major academic hospitals in the US. We've had teams across all of them sign up to start connecting with patients, start listing their trials, and start broadcasting the really important work they're doing. And then we've supported more than 400 studies at this point in some way, shape, or form. So we're really proud of the impact that we've had in the first year and a half of being here. And we're excited to continue growing and making sure that we're supporting patients and researchers along this journey. So this is the portion where I jump in and show you a little bit of what I've been talking about. But before we do that, I just want to pause and see if there's any questions in the audience that we may want to address before I jump into this demo section. Oh.
Anyone? I think we have the ability to, oh no, we don't have the ability to do audio, but yeah, just if anyone has any questions, just put them into the chat or Q&A as Brandon's going.
I think I see a hand up in the attendees that keeps going on.
If someone wants to speak, I can certainly allow them to speak. Praveen, did I see your hand up?
Allison had her hand up, I know.
Oh, sorry, I just pressed it by mistake. I was trying to check if anyone was there in the chat or QA.
Ah, okay.
Hi, it's Allison. I see the chat's disabled. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm just wondering about any like extra support. Maybe you'll get to this in the demo, but in addition to listing trials, are there any additional resources or facilitation that you provide to the site?
What do you mean by resources and facilitation?
Like, I don't know, flyers or a site where once a participant indicates interest, the site can then communicate with them like in a different platform. Gotcha.
Yeah. So let me jump into both of those things. And I'll actually just queue it up in the demo here so it's a little bit smoother. But the question was, what are the other resources that we provide on the site side? And actually,
there's also a question in your chat now too, Brandon.
Gotcha. So what are the resources we provide on the site level? There's a couple things that I'll kind of preview that there's a digital pre-screener, especially for some of these academic studies. We're actually offering it to academic studies in a really cost-effective manner for you to create your own digital pre-screener, but that patients can kind of answer and you can kind of screen the patient's results pretty easily. And then we also have a platform in the back end to manage all that process. So I'll walk into that as a part of the demo. And one other question here, Maria. what is the social demographic of the individuals interested in the platform? That's a really great question. And I think we may have a slide in here later that talks a little bit about diversity. But the high level is that actually we're seeing a really diverse cross-section of patients who are using our platform. In fact, we're representative roughly of the US population. Roughly 40% non-white patients are actually signing up to use the platform to connect with clinical trials. Okay. I've indicated that I've answered it live. Okay, perfect. Well then, with that said, why don't we jump into the demo, and then I'll make sure, Allison, that I've touched on some of the topics you've asked about. Okay, I am now sharing my screen again, but I have our website up, yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. This is our website. It's our homepage. As you can imagine, or as you can see, immediately, this is a way more user-friendly, beautiful, intuitive way to start your search to look for clinical trials. But it's not just a search bar. There's a lot more to it. But let's start with a search here. So let's imagine I'm a patient and I'm looking for trials in lung cancer. I can start the search for lung cancer and immediately see, hey, here's a bunch of trials that are currently recruiting for lung cancer. I can toggle around placebo. It's currently toggled for trials that are recruiting. As a patient, that's probably what I'm most interested in. We can also filter by location. So right now I'm in Europe, so it defaults to Halifax, Canada, one of the most easternmost locations that we could find. But let's go Los Angeles, because we're talking about USC here. So we're going to Los Angeles. We don't want to travel more than 50 miles for lung cancer. One of the interesting things that we do here actually is that we have on the left-hand side this filter bar, and you can interact with as much of the filter bar or as little. One of the things we know about patients is that there's a distribution of health literacy and comfort with different terminologies. So rather than forcing patients through the exact same process, we've decided actually to build a more flexible experience in this filtering that allows patients to engage at the level that they understand. So, one of the things that immediately prompts you with is, hey, this is lung cancer. Do you know if it's non-small cell or small cell? Let's imagine it's non-small cell. Actually, you can see now where there's 2 criteria that are matched for each of these studies. And we start to kind of rank studies based on the kind of match based on the filters that patients are telling us about themselves. One of the things that patients actually tend to have a decent grasp on is any biomarker information if they've had their sequencing done. We've actually seen over and over again that patients have had conversations with their oncologists about these biomarkers. They may not know exactly what all of them mean, but they certainly have heard these things before. So let's imagine a patient is PD-L1 positive. Okay, now there's actually 3 criteria matched for the top studies that are being recommended, these top 25. So here's a handful of studies that can be considered. This one's recruiting. There's actually a check mark in there. It turns out it's actually happening at USC as one of the listed sites for this study. Patients can kind of learn a little bit more about the study. And if they want to see more information about it, we take patients to what we call kind of like a study page. So this is a study profile. This is what the study teams can really own and add to as a part of communicating with patients about the kind of research that they're doing. And there's a couple things that study teams are starting to add to this platform that allows them to, just educate patients who are interested in a really meaningful way. So the first one is video summaries. A lot of patients are finding that video summaries are helpful and patients are engaging in some of this stuff. So study teams are uploading videos that they've created, videos that are on YouTube that are relevant, and even PIs are creating videos themselves that they're uploading to this website as well. One of the things that we know that patients often look for is, what is some of the prior research look like here? Why are we excited about this research? And oftentimes they'll actually go looking in the literature to try to figure out what is out there. And one thing we do is actually recreate the space for the study teams to upload information that they've previously published about this the research that they're doing in a way that patients can start to engage with that information up front. And now I see a question about demographics. question. So the question is, around demographics. I'll actually get into that in a second. And then Praveen is asking, we made sure your application will take less than 5 minutes. This means the screening form, yes. And actually, I'll show everybody what that screening kind of looks like shortly. But essentially, we create all of this stuff for patients to try to understand a little bit more. And we try to explain what these different groups are. We try to explain the trial logistics. What does it take to kind of participate? And then we try to show, hey, here's the locations. Maybe I was looking in Los Angeles, but as I think about it, I actually have family in like near Portland or something. It might be more, or actually Eugene, Oregon. It might be easy for me to actually consider this site as well. So we create this kind of interactive map search that allows patients to really take a look and understand where things are. If patients are interested in participating and contacting the team, they click apply now. For all intents and purposes, this helps patients go through a contact flow. This is a pre-screener. We don't need to go through the entirety of the pre-screener. It works exactly as kind of like a survey might work, as you would expect. We collect a bunch of information from the patients. That information is actually customizable. These pre-screeners are customizable for the study teams. So you can start to make an assessment as to whether patients are likely to be a good fit before you reach out. And this is going a little bit to the question that Allison had, which is, okay, well, what kind of platform offering do we have for the study teams? This is the back end. So what I just showed you was the patient experience. Patients that are out there looking for research, they're signing up for our website all the time. Then what we do is when they sign up for a study and they fill out a pre-screener, they show up here. This is kind of the queue of patients that are interested in your trial potentially, and don't have to worry about this. This is all kind of dummy data that we've kind of put in. These are members of our team. But you can see, okay, here's the patients. They've kind of answered 100% of the questions correctly in the pre-screener. This is how you would contact them. And here's the status. Maybe they're a new patient, or maybe we've contacted them, we need to follow up, all the way through to they've actually enrolled in the study. And that can help you stay on top of the process of working with all these patients. In particular, one thing that's interesting is if you click into the patient's profile, and we actually show you the questions that they answered. So these are the questions that they answered in the pre-screener, and you can see yes, unsure, or no, and make a determination as to whether this patient is, likely to be a good fit, and whether you'd like to actually reach out to try to coordinate a little bit more time to discuss the study. So that kind of brings us to the end of the demo. Hopefully I addressed Allison's questions. And hopefully I addressed Praveen's questions. Perfect. And then I'll actually switch back to the slideshow now, because I think there's a component of this that's actually that directly talks to, I think, some of the demographic questions. And this is an anonymous question, so I don't really know how to address who asked it. But actually, as I'm reading this, maybe it makes sense for me to just address it directly. So age, socioeconomic status. We don't collect socioeconomic status when patients create profiles. We do collect age. The distribution of age is really interesting. I think a lot of the assumption around a platform like this is that it might skew towards a younger audience, but actually what we found is that it's kind of representative of the disease burden. So we do a lot of analysis on this. We were actually, I think, looking more than 70%, 75% of the patients who signed up are over the age of 50 on our website. And that's kind of representative of the folks who might be most engaged in looking at research. So I hope that answers that question. There's another component of this, which is around language. One of the interesting things that we're actually doing with another health system down in LA is doing a little bit of research on a Spanish translation of our website and showing that it improves accessibility for the Spanish-speaking population. And Maria is asking, how do you define success and unsuccessful participant in the system? So I think that's, I'm not sure at what point in the patient's journey you're asking about, but I think broadly, there are 2 points, right? The first point is patient has expressed interest. Are they likely to be qualified or not? And then the second point is, have they enrolled in your study or not? The first piece of trying to understand qualification for the study is entirely based on the pre-screener that you've designed. So we essentially report what percentage of the questions did the patient answer right for all intents and purposes. And hopefully that gets you a little bit of a high-level view as to whether this is likely to be a successful patient referral. And then at the end of the journey is, hey, did the patient enroll? And that's actually, we've got the tooling that allows you to kind of keep track of that, report on it, and stay on top of all of that information. I'm seeing more questions show up, so actually maybe I'll just linger here. Adam asks, have you found if interested participants find study through Power and contact site PIs directly? So we actually don't list kind of like the contact information for the PIs directly on the website. The way that patients kind of contact the PIs and the site teams is by filling out a pre-screener. Cool. So let me go through here. One of the things that we think about most deeply is how does patient centricity and the kind of philosophy behind the way we've built the platform, how does that lead to better results for everybody? And one thing that we found is that patient centricity means that patients are more engaged on our website relative to other sources to learn about trials. So here's just like a comparison against some web analytics on clinicaltrials.gov. We see that patients on our website are anywhere from 2 to 3 times more engaged. This first column is pages per visit. This is the number of pages that the average person on a website look at when they visit that website. And the way to think about this is a higher pages per visit number means that people are more engaged. They're clicking around. They're actually like exploring more and more surface area on the website. So more means more engaged in this case. You can imagine actually this number on clinicaltrials.gov is probably artificially inflated by industry folks who are doing competitive research actually and doing the most clicking around on that website. Another way that we think about engagement is time on site. So this is how long the average visitor spends on a website. 3 minutes is actually pretty good as far as the internet goes. We're seeing that patients are significantly engaged when they come to our website, which just tells us that they're actively looking, actively considering research, and quite interested in learning about what is out there. Another interesting thing that we're finding is that not only are they more engaged, they're more likely to convert. And by convert, I mean connect with the study teams and fill out the pre-screener. So we're finding that sites that have differentiated information about the timeline, information about some maybe a video summary that we just that I just walked through, convert at 3 times higher than non-differentiated trials. And this is the site component that I was just kind of showing you. When we have site profiles, we build more trust with patients because patients are able to assign a human element to the research team at each of these sites. So one of the things that we do, and one of the things we'll be working with all of you on, is how do you think about showing the information about the PI, the CRC, the nurse that's actively working on the study to patients? How do you create these profiles? And in doing so, build more trust with patients as they consider the study at your center. And this is just a view of the demographics. So like I was hinting to before, one of the things we're most proud of is that we're seeing that this patient-centric approach to building this platform is leading to more access, more representative access to research. So this is a list, this is kind of a distribution of patients who've signed up on our website. You can see it's kind of, it's more or less representative of the US population. It's actually overrepresented in some non-white populations, but more or less around 44% non-white patients, as opposed to the status quo in research today, which is around 5% underrepresented groups getting access to research. So this is one of the stats that we're most proud of here. And one of the things that is kind of interesting from a site perspective is that we actually have an ability to collaborate across multiple stakeholders in real time. As everybody here would know, time is of the essence when a patient indicates interest in a trial. this process of broken telephone can really slow down the experience for getting a patient contacted and signed up to visit. And as a result, a lot of patients can lose just interest along the way. So we've created this ability to leave internal comments, internal notes. Think about this as like a Google document where you can leave comments and tag your collaborators to get responses on a certain patient's profile. We have that ability in the platform. And what we've seen is that this streamlined coordination actually allows sites to be 3.5 times more responsive to patients. One of the things that we've been working on internally, and this is very study specific, is that medical record collection can often take a long time for sites. So we've started to roll out an ability to collect records on behalf of a patient, and we've got the patient's consent to share those records with the study teams that are appropriate. And we're now able to actually take that medical record collection time from 30 days down to 5 days and up to 2 days in some instances, where we make it a lot easier to kind of collect those records and share them with the study teams. We found that in a lot of research, if this is a critical path item, this can often be the biggest blocker to participation for a patient. And then one of the things that's when we back up that we're really excited about is that if we think about impact through the funnel versus status quo and versus kind of the big bad like traditional patient recruitment apparatus, is that our kind of system here is at least 25 times more effective than what we've seen as kind of benchmark. So on the left-hand side, we see that patients actually convert 2 times better than status quo. So this is the percentage of patients who sign up on our website to learn about trials. And on the right-hand side, this is the percent of patients who end up coordinating a screening visit. And what we see here on the status quo is that today, if patients learn about your study on clinicaltrials.gov and they try to reach out, about 0.7% of those patients coordinate a screening visit, whereas on our platform, it's almost 10% of those patients end up coordinating a screening visit. And that kind of performance across the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, through to the bottom of the funnel is how we really think about transitioning from traditional patient recruitment, which has not historically been very successful, towards a modern approach that does have better odds of delivering impact. And one of the things that maybe we'll just kind of close on here is a quick case study. So this is a study that we partnered on to support at the highest level. 2 things to call out here is that first one is that we were able to lift the accrual rate of this study by 24% across the sites that we partnered with. And in particular, one of the things that was most impactful was actually the access to underrepresented groups. So roughly 80% of the patients who participated in this study that we had referred were non-white. And that was really exciting for the entire team that was collaborating on this study. So that kind of takes me to the end of like the structured materials for this conversation. I think we had 5 minutes penciled in at the end here for Q&A. But Eric, let me know if there's another way that you'd like us to facilitate this.
I think it's great as described. Yeah, this has been super helpful. Let's give people a chance to either pop it in the chat, Q&A. I think we've already got some coming through. So does it work for you, Brandon, just to get those?
Absolutely.
We got another from Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. So Adam asks, what are the requirements for a study to be listed on Power? How do we ensure high quality research is listed? So first and foremost, I think the first thing we do is we cross-reference against clinicaltrials.gov. We don't have a particularly different bar from clinicaltrials.gov in terms of assessment for how trials end up on our platform. Sometimes there are sponsors who want to list on our website before it's live on clinicaltrials.gov, in which case we get the protocol and the kind of IRB review of that protocol.
Great, thanks. So we do have some time. Yeah, we've got a couple minutes here if people want to continue with their questions. But yeah, just wondering if John or Vana, you guys, anything that you guys wanted to add that to enhance what Brandon was talking about?
Yeah, I think it's important to note as far as the pre-screener is concerned, we've really whittled that down to just six questions, right? We've had a lot of success. Number one, we've gotten fabulous feedback on the pre-screener, but just those kind of linchpin 6 questions that have really gotten terrific results that you have complete control over. The sponsor or the sites can go in and edit those. We show you it's pretty easy to do once we share with you how to do it. But go in, if it's working great, you don't do it. If you need to edit them to get a better result, then you certainly have the ability to go do that. The other thing that I would like to mention too is when you talk about the researcher view into the platform, I think it's important to note that we do have a registry, right, where you can actually go in and search and invite patients to join a trial, specifically by indication. If these are patients that have applied to a similar trial, that have ticked the box to say yes. If another researcher comes across my profile, they have access to these linchpin questions I've been asked. If they think there's a fit, certainly have them reach out to me because I am interested in learning more about that trial. So that's gotten a lot of really rave reviews as well.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, and then you see, Brandon, there's a question about cost. I wonder if you could just talk about that, and then Maria has a
Yeah,
question.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So the way to think about cost is it's quite different. Actually, we've got an academic partnership package that we can certainly explore with USC, and then we have an industry model as well. So I'll talk a little bit more to the academic side. And actually, in the academic side, we've got some flexibility, some academic grants that we're kind of thinking about rolling out in kind of partnership with researchers. So today on the academic side, it's $200 a month, $2,400 a year to be active on the platform. But what I'll say is that talk to us. We've got somebody on our team that works with academic research teams all the time. More than happy to kind of connect you and discuss what that looks like on an individual study level, or if we wanted to look at a broader partnership across USC, that probably changes how we think about partnering across the portfolio of research that's happening over there. Maria asks, what are the main barriers for patients to use the platform, if there are any? That's a great question. What barriers do you potentially see here? And actually, that's actually a hard thing for me to do when we're in this panel kind of setup. But if Maria, you wanted to kind of jot down any barriers that you kind of see, would be kind of curious to hear your thoughts. Yeah, interesting. Starting with not being able to continue working on the platform. One of the things that we've thought about is how do we design a platform that's open access that doesn't require kind of like a login to be able to start using, just from the purpose of allowing people to start browsing before needing to commit to anything. If you think about your experiences on Airbnb or Zillow or any of these kinds of platforms, one of the things that makes them incredibly powerful is that you don't have to have an account to start using it. You can start taking a look and seeing if there's something that makes sense. And then if you found something that makes sense, then you can create an account and start to engage a little bit more deeply. And that's kind of how we thought about it on our end too. We really wanted to make it easy to start without a commitment, and then only asking for a commitment when individuals are truly trying to commit.
Thanks, Brandon. So I just, before you get to Adam's question, I just put up a quick poll to people's comfort level. Just really interested to see how everyone's interest level, just in terms of, I just put low, medium, or high. Especially interested in the USC researchers and staff that are here on the call, but also those that are outside our institution. And then
Yeah,
you want to grab Adam's question? You got another line there.
absolutely. Maybe this is the last question we take, given I think we're at time now. Have we found differential success based on study type? Yeah, actually, I mean, one of the things I think that is the biggest driver of success is the indication that researchers are kind of studying, right? We do a lot of work in oncology. We have a lot of patients who are interested in oncology work, but then famously, the criteria are probably amongst the most complex to kind of navigate. The medical record retrieval system helps accelerate the speed of kind of connecting appropriately, but at the end of the day, the complexity of the criteria, the level of self-directed engagement from a patient really drive, I think, where we can find the most success. in any given indication. But depending on your study specifically, it's probably worth just having a conversation with us to figure out, do we think that it's an indication that we can have success in, where we have active patients? So we're actually happy to look at some of the data together as you think about that.
Excellent.
Perfect.
So then, yes, let's wrap up. I just want to say thanks so much to Brandon, John, and Vanna from Power for being with us today. There is a link to a survey that Karen posted in the chat. If everybody could just click on that. Really easy, just give us some feedback on this presentation as well as any ideas you have for upcoming Digital Scholar webinars. So we will be back in November. So look for an email from us about the topic that'll be covered then. And any questions that people have, Brandon, what's the best way? How should they reach out to you? Just go on the website.
I mean, you can email our team directly. Actually, John, I think I see you.
Yeah,
Jumping
yeah.
in.
So Karen and I are in touch. So if anybody has any questions or would like any more information, we are more than happy to reconvene at whatever level necessary to make sure you have all the answers to any questions that you have. We'd love to engage and continue to educate everybody on how we're going to change the world.
Love it. Okay. Thank you guys. Really appreciate your time. Thanks to everybody for being here and have a good rest of the day.